Welcome to chapel. This is the fourth and final chapel that's hosted by the Department of Chemistry and Biochemistry this fall. In previous ones, you learned about water and about climate change and about energy. Today, we have a very special privilege of talking to, and I'm going to interview Professor Ken Piers. He is really the professor that taught your professors. He started at Calvin in 1968 and retired after 40 years, but has still been very active in the department and in many other ways, both teaching courses and leading seminars and the like. He's taught a lot of courses. He's an organic chemist officially, so he taught a lot of organic chemistry. He also taught environmental chemistry, quantitative chemistry, and a lot of general chemistry, including the course that brings many of you here today, Chem 103. So, he has long been a champion for sustainability. In many ways, he's been the inspiration for your professors, and I can definitely add myself to that. He is the person that I first learned a lot of this stuff that we've been trying to pass on to you this semester. So I think it's a great privilege for us to get a chance to hear from him and hear some of his views on this stuff. So if you would, help me welcome Professor Ken Piers.
Thank you.
So thank you for being here, Ken. Thank you for being willing to share with us. I'm gonna jump right in because we know we don't have a lot of time. And I'm going to start with this question. How have your religious beliefs played a role in your interest in environmental issues?
Yeah, that's a good question. I have to confess I'm more nervous this morning than I've ever been speaking publicly, so bear with me. But my religious beliefs, I've always had an appreciation for the Reformed emphasis on the three doctrines, creation, fall, and redemption. And in particular, the teaching about creation has been important to me. We read about the creation stories in Genesis 1 and 2. And in Genesis 1 and 2, we learn that humans have a special position in creation and with God, a position that no other creatures have. We learn that humans alone are capable of knowing the difference between good and evil. We learn about our relationship to the earth. And in particular, I want to just focus a moment on two verses. Probably you know them well. Genesis 1 verse 28, where God blesses the male and female that he made. And he says to them, and God blessed them and said to them, be fruitful and multiply and fill the earth and subdue it and have dominion over the fish of the sea, the birds of the air, and over every living thing that moves on the face of the earth. Now, when we look at those two verbs, subdue and have dominion, the Hebrew words, and I've learned this from colleagues at Calvin, I'm no Hebrew scholar, the Hebrew word for subdue is kabas. So we have to kabas the earth. Well, what does that mean? Well, the sense of kabas, if I've learned correctly, is to trample down, to have power over, to subdue. So it's a very strong verb. It seems to give humans permission to do a lot of things. And then the word for have dominion is rada, the Hebrew word, rada. So kabas and rada. Rada has to do with to rule and to control, to have authority over. So again, it places humans in a very strong position with respect to the earth. And often this position has been blamed, this teaching has been blamed for the human abuse of the earth, as though we can do anything we want with it. But in Genesis 2 verse 15, we read another verse that maybe is a little less well known. But in Genesis 2:15, this is a story of the Garden of Eden, and it says there, "And the Lord God took the man and put him in the Garden of Eden to work it and keep it." Now again, there are two verbs, work and keep. And the word work for Hebrew is shamar. And shamar has the sense of to till and to make fruitful and to cause the earth to flourish, that kind of thing. The other verb is abad, which means to keep, but it also has the sense of to care for and to nurture and to preserve. So those are the verbs in 2:15, which sort of flesh out, I think, how we are to exercise this authority that we are given in 128. So how are we to do that? It means to care for the earth. Well, this teaching I actually heard first from Professor David Warners in the biology department, and I've taken that to heart, and so that's been very formative for me.
Good.
So let's leave it at that.
Okay, thank you. So you've made a lot of commitments because of what you take to heart there. You've made commitments to sustainability and other things. What are some of those commitments that you've done, and especially what are some of the dietary commitments?
Yeah, when you talk about sustainability, we in America carry a big responsibility because we have a first world lifestyle. And a first world lifestyle uses resources at a tremendous rate. So when I started talking and teaching about sustainability and learning about it, a lot of it is self-taught stuff that I got from reading books. People immediately want to know, well, what are you doing, in your own life? So are you sort of walking your talk? Well, I wanted to walk my talk, and I've learned that one of the most consequential things that humans can do with respect to reducing their impact on the earth has to do with our diets, what we eat. It doesn't take any new laws or any rules. Nobody has to tell us to do it. We just have to make the decision and commit to it. So in 2009, my wife and I made a change in our diet, and we made it from one week to the next. We said we're going to become plant-based eaters. We're not going to eat animal products anymore. And this transition took a while. What played a role in it? Well, in 2006, the United Nations Food and Agriculture Organization published a study called Livestock's Long Shadow, which detailed the impact that industrial agriculture, particularly animal agriculture, the impact that has on the environment. And that was the first time I really connected the idea that, hey, what I eat has something to do with how the earth flourishes. Also, I made many trips across the country because my family is in Western Canada. So when I was younger, we made many trips across the country, and I was always struck with how much fertile land in this country is dedicated to growing corn and soy. Corn and soy, soy and corn, That was sort of the scenery as we traveled for at least a day and a half. You could travel 15, 16, 18 hours and see hardly anything but corn and soy in the countryside. And I thought, if all this land were dedicated not to growing food for animals, for domestic animals, but to growing food for humans, wouldn't there be more than enough food to fill the stomachs of all the hungry people in this world? So that played a role. In 2008, I was teaching a class in my course, Energy energy resources and the environment, which was a core course for non-science majors. And I had a group of students that fall, about 6 of them, who were vegan. I think they might have been living in a house that you and your wife were the house parents for. And I was struck by these students' lifestyles. So I asked them what caused them to be vegan. Well, different things in their lives. But a lot of them spoke about the plight of animals on industrial farms, where you have thousands and thousands of hogs, cattle, chickens, turkeys, what have you, crammed into a small space and not able to live out their lives in their animal-like nature. So that was striking. Again, I wasn't paying much attention to that until the students told me about it. And then they invited my wife and I to dinner a couple of times, and we had a vegan meal with them. And so that was a little step along the way. And then in the spring of 2009, a good friend of ours gave us a couple books about the health impacts of our diet. The China Study by Colin Campbell, and Preventing and Reversing Heart Disease by Dr. Esselstyn from the Cleveland Clinic. And there's heart disease in my family. I have had a heart attack since then, just this summer, but I'm here. And I thought, hey, the health impacts of an animal-based standard American diet are serious. So I read that book and I said to my wife, I don't know about you, but I think I'm going to switch to a vegan diet. And she read those books and she said, well, I think I'm going to join you. And mercifully, she's a good cook, she likes cooking, and so we switched to a vegan diet. And it's a softer diet, it's you have to learn new things, but I'm here and I'm healthy.
So when you talk about this, I'll confess, I've lived with students who are vegans. I'm scared of becoming a vegan, even though everything you say makes sense to me. So you talked about turkeys. We've just had Thanksgiving. I mean, the thing is, you feel like, what am I going to do when I'm at, other people's houses, and how am I going to celebrate these big meals? And we have such traditions, for bringing out the big bird and everything else. So maybe just for my sake, tell me a little bit about your Thanksgiving. What does that look like? And, give me reassurances that it's still a wonderful time, even though, there's no turkey there. Help me get over my irrational fear here.
Well, Thanksgiving went by just fine, actually. There are vegan substitutes for turkeys. So we buy a plant-based roast.
It tastes good?
And it tastes good.
Okay.
You have gravy with it, you have cranberry sauce with it, you have vegetables with it, all the things you would have with a turkey, except it's not a turkey that had to die so you can celebrate your Thanksgiving. As far as eating food and socializing with people, when we go out, are invited out for a meal, we usually advise the people beforehand that we eat a plant-based diet and we do not eat meat. If it's just for a cup of coffee and something after church or wherever, and they serve us a piece of cake, we don't ask, does this cake have an egg in it? We just eat it, and we assume it could be vegan, so let's eat it.
Don't ask, don't tell,
Yeah.
Just eat it.
Yeah.
Okay.
But if they serve you a piece of meat, this is not vegan. I can't even pretend it's vegan. So there are times when we just, say, it could be vegan, and we eat it.
So cake may be vegan, steak not vegan.
Right. Yeah.
Okay. I want to ask you about some of the things, because I know that you have answers to this. What are some of the things you're doing now to help form a community that's committed to a sustainable future? Because we're thinking generations here. We're thinking there's people that come after us, children, grandchildren. And I know you're doing more than some of the personal decisions you've made. So I'd love to hear a little bit about that.
We are looking at a future that in many ways looks grim. I do think that climate change is the big problem for the entire planet, despite what some people tell us. We need to get over climate denialism and say life with climate change is possible. And so what do? Well, I've been a part of Plaster Creek Stewards here at Calvin since it began, so I support that. But after I retired, I was looking for things to do, and I came across a national movement called the Citizens Climate Lobby, CCL. And they have a website. If you just Google Citizens Climate Lobby, you can find their website. But this organization, which now has well over 100,000 members in the U.S. and Canada and China and Australia, it's sort of international, but their whole program is to get governments around the world, but especially here in the U.S., to commit to putting a carbon tax on all fossil fuels. We call it a carbon fee, and that tax would rise over time. And then the money that's collected would be returned to citizens to do with, on an equal per capita basis, to do with what they see fit. So it's a proposal that doesn't tell people what to do, but it is a proposal that will steadily increase the costs of fossil fuels and fossil fuel-based goods. And eventually, we think people will make different choices about what they buy. So I've been active in that group, for the last 5 years now. I do a lot of speaking for it and presenting wherever I am invited. Another project that I'm very interested in is the Christian Reformed Church's Climate Witness Project, which is a denomination-wide. In fact, we have many churches that are not Christian Reformed churches that have joined the effort, but it's an effort to get churches to engage in education of members of the church, to encourage worship that focuses on creation care, and engages in advocacy projects about addressing the people who govern us, local, state, and federal, about the issues of climate change. So those two projects have been really close to me, and I give quite a bit of time to it.
Well, and I would add that over decades, you have educated and brought awareness on a lot of these issues to a lot of people, and I think that's a big influence as well. As we wrap up, I would say you have a lot of wisdom and experience in these areas. I'm very thankful for it. What message would you like today's students to take from these 15, 20 minutes right now?
Yeah. I think the word I want to leave with you is hope. Hope. Not the college, but hope. Because climate change and addressing it and living your life seem like, in a way that helps address climate change, seems like a hugely impossible task. But God does not ask us the impossible. God just asks us to be faithful where we are. And if you live in hope and live responsibly where you are and do things and engage in activities that are kind to the earth, you'll be doing the right thing. You might think about your food. That is the easiest thing to do and the hardest thing to do in some ways. It just needs a commitment, and you can survive it. But live in hope. So thank you.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Professor Piers. If you would help me thank Professor Piers. I think more than anything, I wanted everyone here to see the sort of impact that one person can have over the course of their life, because I think Ken's had a great impact in a lot of positive ways. So I hope you've seen that today. Go in peace.